Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto wielded the Death Note, and the Shinigami eyes as Kira Naruto x Misa Amane, Death Note. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Notebook of Death. Naruto's sandals splashed through puddles as he sprinted across the rooftops of the Hidden Leaf Village. Rain pattered against his black and orange jacket, but he barely noticed. 3 years after the Fourth Great Ninja War, and he still couldn't sleep through the night without seeing their faces, everyone who hadn't made it back. Damn it, he muttered, pushing chakra into his feet to leap across a particularly wide gap between buildings. The village had changed since the war. Modern technology now blended with the traditional architecture he'd grown up with. Neon signs glowed through the rain, and electrical wires crisscrossed between buildings. Some called it progress. Naruto wasn't sure what to call it. His earpiece crackled. "Naruto, you copy?" "Target's moving southwest toward the commercial district." Shikamaru's voice sounded tense. "I see him," Naruto replied, spotting the figure darting through the shadows below. "Another Otsutsuki sympathizer?" "Yeah. Intel says he's carrying explosive tags." "Lots of them." Naruto clenched his jaw. The war had ended, but the fighting hadn't. Remnants of Kagaya's followers, rogue ninjas who believed the infinite Tsukimi should have succeeded, they kept coming out of the woodwork, targeting civilians to make their point. "I'm on it," he said, changing direction. The target moved fast, Jonin level at least. He wore civilian clothes, but the way he moved gave him away. No civilian navigated shadows like that. As Naruto gained ground, something caught his eye, a black object falling from the sky. He almost dismissed it as garbage or a bird, but it fell too deliberately, too straight. "What the hell?" he muttered, watching it land with a soft splash in an empty lot. His earpiece crackled again. "Naruto." The target just entered the night market. Hundreds of civilians. Decision time. Chase the bomber or check out the strange object. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In an instant, 3 shadow clones appeared beside him. "You guys, after the target. Surround him, but don't engage until I get there." The clones nodded and took off. Naruto dropped down to investigate. It was a notebook. Black cover, lying face up in a puddle, yet somehow completely dry. White letters spelled out, "Death Note," on the cover. "The hell is this?" he muttered, picking it up. Something about it felt wrong, heavier than it should be, colder than the rain around it. He flipped it open to the first page and squinted at the text inside. "The human whose name is written in this note shall die." "Some kind of sick joke," he murmured, tucking it into his jacket. No time to puzzle over it now. His clones had the target surrounded in the night market, keeping civilians clear while maintaining visual contact. Naruto raced toward them, the strange notebook momentarily forgotten. He arrived to find the market in chaos, people screaming, running in all directions as his clones tried to clear the area. The bomber stood in the center, a wild look in his eyes. For Lady Kagaya's vision, he screamed, reaching into his jacket. Naruto didn't hesitate. A Rasengan formed in his palm as he charged, but the distance was too great, he wouldn't make it in time. The man pulled out a detonator. Time slowed. Naruto could see the man's thumb moving toward the trigger. Civilians still scrambling to escape. His clones diving to tackle the bomber, too far away. The notebook. Without thinking, Naruto pulled it out, a pen somehow already in his hand. He scrawled the bomber's name, Takeo Mizuki, visible on the ID badge hanging from his neck, and the words, "Heart Attack," beneath it. 40 seconds later, the man clutched his chest and collapsed. The detonator falling harmlessly from his fingers. Naruto stood frozen, the notebook still open in his hands. His clone secured the explosives while people cheered, thinking he'd somehow used a jutsu to stop the terrorist. What the hell just happened, he whispered to himself. Hyuk hyuk hyuk. What happened is you just used the death note. Naruto whirled around, kunai instantly in hand. Behind him floated something. Not human, not animal. Tall, gangly, with bulging yellow eyes and a permanent grin filled with shark-like teeth. Blue-gray skin stretched over a skeletal frame, with feathery black details that might have been clothing or might have been part of its body. What are you? Naruto demanded, his voice low enough that civilians rushing past couldn't hear. The name's Ryuk. I'm a Shinigami. The creature hovered closer, seemingly unbothered by the kunai. And that notebook you've got there? It's mine. Or was, until it fell into the human world. Naruto glanced down at the death note, then back at the fallen terrorist. This thing, it killed him. Bingo. Write a name, that person dies. Simple, efficient. Ryuk floated in a lazy circle around Naruto. And now that you've used it, you're the owner. Congratulations. I don't want, Naruto. Shikamaru's voice cut through the crowd as he approached. What happened? How'd you stop him? Naruto quickly tucked the notebook away, noticing with alarm that Shikamaru walked right past Ryuk without seeing him. Pressure point technique, Naruto lied. Hit him from behind. He's still alive, just unconscious. Ryuk cackled. Only those who touch the death note can see me. Interesting predicament you're in, huh? Shikamaru knelt beside the body, checking for a pulse. His expression darkened. He's dead, Naruto. Heart attack, from the looks of it. What? That's not possible. The lie felt hollow even as he said it. Stress, maybe, Shikamaru said, but his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Lucky break for us, I suppose. Those explosives could have killed dozens. As medical ninjas arrived to handle the body and Anbu secured the explosives, Naruto stood back, his mind racing. The notebook in his jacket felt heavier with each passing second. You okay? Shikamaru asked. You look like you've seen a ghost. Yeah, Naruto managed. Just tired. I'm gonna head home. Get some rest. Kakashi wants a full report in the morning. Shikamaru clasped his shoulder before walking away. The moment Naruto reached his apartment, he pulled out the notebook and threw it on the table like it might bite him. That was quite the first kill, Ryuk commented, phasing through the wall. Most people start with someone they know personally. A bully, an ex, a boss. I didn't mean to kill anyone. Naruto snapped. Oh. So writing his name and heart attack was, what? Taking notes. The Shinigami's permanent grin somehow widened. Naruto sank into a chair. I just wanted to stop him. Those people would have died. And they didn't, thanks to you. Ryuk floated to Naruto's refrigerator, opening it and poking around. Got any apples? I love apples. What? No, I mean, maybe. Check the produce drawer. Naruto ran his fingers through his hair. What is this thing exactly? Ryuk found an apple and bit into it with evident delight. Human world apples are so juicy. He took another bite before answering. It's a death note. Shinigami use them to extend their lives by killing humans. I dropped this one because I was bored. Bored? The Shinigami realm is dull. Nothing happens. No entertainment. So I thought I'd see what would happen if a human got hold of one of these. He gestured to the notebook with the half-eaten apple. Last guy who found one was fascinating. A real genius. Tried to become the god of a new world. Naruto stared at the notebook. And what happened to him? He died, of course. Humans always do, eventually. Naruto pushed the notebook away. Take it back. I don't want this. Can't do that. Rules say once a death note lands in the human world, it belongs to that world until the owner dies or relinquishes ownership. Ryuk finished the apple, core and all. But hey, if you really don't want it, just give it to someone else. Then all your memories of the notebook and me will disappear. Naruto paused. All memories? Completely wiped. You'll forget everything about the death note. Including what he'd done with it. The terrorist he'd killed with just a pen stroke. Naruto massaged his temples, feeling a headache coming on. I need to think. Take your time, Ryuk said, floating to the window. The show's just getting started, and I'm eager to see what you'll do next. You're already more interesting than most humans. Over the next week, the notebook stayed hidden in Naruto's apartment while he went about his duties. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. The power to eliminate threats with just a name. No battles, no casualties on their side, no innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. Reports kept coming in, more terrorist cells, more Otsutsuki sympathizers planning attacks. The fragile peace they'd fought so hard for was constantly under threat. You're not sleeping again, Sakura noted during a team meeting at Ichiraku Ramen. The nightmares? Naruto nodded, pushing his noodles around. Same ones. I keep seeing everyone we lost. We all do, Sasuke said quietly. After returning to the village, he became more open, though still reserved. But we can't change the past. What about the future, though? Naruto asked. All these attacks, these threats. It's like the war never really ended. That's why we're here, Sakura said firmly. To keep fighting for peace. But at what cost? How many more would die in the endless cycle of violence? That night, Naruto sat at his table, the death note open before him. Ryuk hovered nearby, munching on an apple. Still deciding, the Shinigami asked. If I used this, really used it, I could eliminate threats before they hurt anyone. Sure could, Ryuk agreed. Though finding their names might be tricky. Naruto thought about that. Unless I could see their names just by looking at them. Ryuk's eyes gleamed. Ah, you're thinking about the eyes. Eyes? Shinigami eyes. Let you see the name and remaining lifespan of anyone you look at. I could give them to you, for a price. Naruto's fingers tightened on the notebook. What price? Half your remaining lifespan. Ryuk's grin widened. Fair trade, don't you think? Half his life. Naruto thought about everyone counting on him, his dream of becoming Hokage. But then he thought about all those who might die while he hesitated, civilians caught in attacks, fellow ninja killed in action. How would it work? These eyes? You'd see names and lifespans floating above people's heads. Only the lifespans of others, though, never your own or another Death Note user's. Naruto closed the notebook. I need to see something first. The next morning found him in Kakashi's office, reviewing intelligence reports. Another cell surfaced in the land of rivers, Kakashi said, sliding a file across his desk. They're planning something big. Multiple targets, coordinated attacks. Naruto flipped through the file. Casualties? If they succeed? Thousands, potentially. They're targeting infrastructure, dams, power stations, hospitals. And we just wait for them to attack before we move? Kakashi gave him a measured look. We gather intelligence, Naruto. We don't strike without confirmation. While we wait, they get stronger. Careful. That kind of thinking leads down dangerous paths. Kakashi leaned back in his chair. I've assigned you to lead the response team. You leave tomorrow. Naruto nodded, his mind already made up. That night, he faced Ryuk. The eyes. I'll take them. Half your life for the power to see names. Ryuk confirmed, his skeletal face alight with excitement. You sure? I'm sure. The transformation was instantaneous and excruciating. Naruto fell to his knees, clutching his face as his vision blurred, burned, then cleared with terrifying sharpness. When he looked up at Ryuk, he saw strange symbols floating above the Shinigami's head, his name and characters Naruto somehow understood despite never seeing them before. It worked, Naruto gasped. Of course it worked. I always keep my end of deals. Ryuk stretched his wings. Now the fun really begins. The Land of Rivers operation was textbook perfect. Naruto's team neutralized the terrorist cell with 0 friendly casualties. Official reports credited exceptional intelligence work and Naruto's tactical leadership. What the reports didn't mention was how Naruto had slipped away each night, writing names in the death note. Heart attacks, accidents, suicides, each death precisely timed and executed to avoid suspicion while systematically dismantling the organization from within. By the time his team arrived at the main base, half the terrorists were already dead, the remainder disorganized and easily captured. I've never seen an operation go so smoothly, Sai commented as they headed back to Konoha. Almost like they were cursed. Naruto said nothing, but he felt Ryuk's laughter like ice down his spine. Back in Konoha, reports of mysterious deaths spread like wildfire. Criminal organizations, terrorist cells, war criminals who'd escaped justice, all dying of heart attacks. The pattern was too distinct to ignore. Someone's out there playing executioner, Shikamaru said during a private conversation with Naruto at his apartment. The deaths are too coordinated, too specific. Maybe it's just karma finally catching up, Naruto suggested. Since when do you believe in karma? Shikamaru's eyes narrowed. The intelligence on some of these targets was classified. Whoever's doing this has access to sensitive information. Naruto carefully kept his expression neutral. You think it's someone in Konoha? I think it's someone with power and resources. Shikamaru stood to leave. Kakashi's bringing in a special investigator. Some hotshot detective from the Land of Iron. After Shikamaru left, Ryuk cackled. Getting interesting. A detective on your trail already. Naruto wasn't worried. With the Shinigami eyes and his position, he had advantages like Yagami never had. He could see threats coming, identify potential witnesses, and stay ahead of investigations. Let them look, he said, writing another name in the notebook. They won't find Kira. Kira? Taking up his mantle, are you? It's what they're calling whoever's behind the deaths. Might as well embrace it. Naruto closed the notebook. The world needs a Kira right now. Misa Amane adjusted her gothic Lolita dress as she stepped off the train in Konoha Station. The Hidden Leaf Village was nothing like she'd imagined, a strange mix of traditional buildings and modern technology, with faces of past leaders carved into a mountain overlooking it all. But she wasn't here for sightseeing. She'd tracked the pattern of deaths across the 5 great nations, each one matching what she remembered from years ago. Heart attacks targeting criminals. Someone was using a death note, just like Light had. Someone was continuing his work. Someone was Kira. And she was going to find them. Excuse me, she asked a pink-haired woman at the station. Where would I find information about ninja registration? I'm looking into a story about war heroes. The woman, Sakura, according to the name and lifespan Misa could see thanks to her own Shinigami eyes, pointed her toward the administration building. The public records office is on the 2nd floor, but they're strict about what they release. Thanks. Misa chirped, heading in that direction. Finding Kira wouldn't be easy, but she had advantages. Her eyes meant she only needed to see faces, not learn names. And her cover as a journalist writing about war heroes gave her access to many high-level ninja. She spent the day gathering names, taking photos, and compiling a list of potential Kira candidates. It had to be someone with access to classified information, someone in a position of authority, someone who had experienced the horrors of war firsthand. By evening, she had narrowed her list to 20 possibilities. She'd start investigating each one tomorrow. As she checked into her hotel, Misa felt a familiar excitement. Light was gone, but his legacy lived on. And maybe, just maybe, this new Kira would appreciate having an ally with the eyes. Naruto couldn't sleep. Again. He stood on his apartment balcony, staring out at the village. His village. The one he'd sworn to protect. In the 3 weeks since he'd started using the Death Note, crime rates had plummeted. Terrorist attacks had ceased entirely. The 5 great nations were experiencing the most peaceful period since before the war. "You're making quite the impact," Ryuk observed, hovering beside him. "Just like he did." "The difference is, I'm not trying to become a god," Naruto replied. "I just want peace." Sure. That's how it starts." Ryuk chuckled. "By the way, there's something interesting at that ramen shop you like. Might want to check it out tomorrow." "What do you mean?" But Ryuk just grinned wider and said nothing more. The next day, Naruto headed to Ichiraku for lunch. As he approached, he noticed a blonde woman sitting at the counter, enthusiastically slurping noodles. "This is amazing," she was telling Tucci. "We don't have ramen this good in the city." Naruto took the seat next to her, and when she turned to look at him, he saw her name floating above her head, Misa Amane. But what caught his attention wasn't her name, it was the absence of numbers showing her lifespan. The only people whose lifespans couldn't be seen with the Shinigami eyes were other Death Note owners. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither spoke. Then Misa's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "You're Naruto Uzumaki, right? The war hero?" she asked, her voice light and cheerful. "I'm Misa Amane. I'm a journalist writing about heroes of the Fourth Great Ninja War." "Nice to meet you," Naruto replied cautiously. As they talked, he studied her. She seemed harmless enough, bubbly, enthusiastic, dressed in an elaborate Gothic fashion that stood out even in Konoha's eclectic street styles. But the missing lifespan told him everything he needed to know. She had a Death Note. She had the eyes. And somehow, she'd come to Konoha looking for something, or someone. "I'd love to interview you sometime," she said as they finished their meals. "Your story is legendary." "Sure," Naruto agreed, making a split-second decision. "How about tonight? My place is quiet. We won't be interrupted." If she was a threat, better to deal with her directly. If she was an ally, well, that could be interesting. Misa beamed. "Perfect. It's a date." As she bounced away, Ryuk's laughter echoed in Naruto's ears. "Told you it would be interesting," the Shinigami said. "Think she's found you out already? If she has, she's either here to expose me or join me." Naruto stood, leaving payment for his meal. "Either way, I'll be ready." The cat and mouse game had begun. But who was the cat, and who was the mouse? Tonight, he'd find out. Meanwhile, across town, a tall figure in a dark suit stepped off a private train. He adjusted his glasses and surveyed the hidden leaf village with calculating eyes. "So this is where Kira is hiding," Shikaku Hyoji murmured. "Time to begin the hunt." Misa spent the afternoon preparing for her interview with Naruto. She chose her outfit carefully, cute enough to seem non-threatening, but with enough hidden pockets for emergency supplies. Including, of course, pages from her Death Note. Her Shinigami, Rem, watched silently from the corner of the hotel room. "You're certain he's the one?" Rem asked. "He has to be," Misa replied, applying her makeup. "No lifespan. Access to classified information. Plus, the death started after the mission he led to the land of rivers. It all fits. And if he is Kira? What then?" Misa paused, mascara wand in hand. "Then I offer to help him, just like I helped Light. 2 Death Notes are better than 1, right?" Misa Rem's voice held a warning. Remember what happened last time. Light made mistakes, Misa said firmly. He got too ambitious, too arrogant. From what I've heard about Naruto Uzumaki, he's different. He fights to protect people, not to rule them. Humans change when they hold the power of death in their hands, Rem cautioned. We'll see, Misa said, returning to her makeup. Tonight, I'll know for sure. Naruto spent the hours before Misa's arrival strategizing. If she had a death note, if she knew he was Kira, then this meeting was dangerous. But it was also an opportunity. You could just kill her, Ryuk suggested, watching Naruto pace. Write her name down before she arrives. No, Naruto said firmly. I need information first. Why is she here? Is she working alone? Does she have the same goals? Getting cautious, aren't you? Smart. Ryuk floated upside down. The last guy got sloppy when he thought he was winning. Naruto positioned furniture to ensure he could see any sudden movements. He hid weapons around the apartment, not that he needed them with his ninja abilities, but backup plans never hurt. And he prepared his most disarming smile. The doorbell rang precisely at 7. Misa stood there with a notebook and pen in hand, a regular notebook, not a death note, but the parallel wasn't lost on Naruto. Thanks for agreeing to this interview, she chirped, bouncing into his apartment when he stepped aside. Your story is so inspiring. The orphan who became a war hero and saved the world. Naruto closed the door, hyper-aware of both Ryuk hovering near the ceiling and another Shinigami, taller, white, with a more skeletal face, standing protectively behind Misa. Happy to help, he said casually. Can I get you something to drink? Water is fine, she said, settling on his couch and arranging her notebook. So, let's start with the basics. What was it like growing up as a Jinchuriki? The interview proceeded normally for about 20 minutes. Misa asked standard questions about his childhood, his training, his experiences during the war. Naruto gave practiced answers, watching her carefully. Then, during a pause while she flipped to a new page in her notebook, Misa said casually, So, what's it like being Kira? The room went silent except for Ryuk's delighted cackle. Naruto didn't flinch, didn't react outwardly at all. Excuse me? Misa looked up, her eyes deadly serious despite her cute appearance. I know it's you. You have a death note. You can see my name but not my lifespan, just like I can see yours but not your lifespan. I don't know what you're talking about, Naruto replied, his voice level. Don't lie to me. Misa snapped, her bubbly persona vanishing. I've been following the deaths. I know the pattern. I've seen it before. Before? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Misa's expression softened. I worked with the original Kira. Like Yagami. He was brilliant, perfect, and he died continuing his mission to cleanse the world. Her eyes grew fierce. When I heard about criminals dying of heart attacks again, I knew someone had taken up his cause. And I want to help. Naruto studied her for a long moment, then glanced at Ryuk, who nodded slightly. She's telling the truth, the Shinigami confirmed. She was the second Kira. Fine, Naruto finally said. I'm Kira. What do you want? Misa's face lit up. To help you. I have the eyes, as you've noticed. I can see names. I can be your eyes in places you can't go. We can work together, just like Light and I did. And why would you want to help me? You don't even know me. Because Kira's mission is important, she said earnestly. Creating a world without crime, without evil. Light died for that vision. I want to see it completed. Naruto shook his head. That's not my mission. What? Misa looked confused. I'm not trying to create some perfect world or become a god of justice, he explained. I'm protecting peace. Peace that thousands died for. I'm eliminating threats before they can destroy what we built. But, that's the same thing, isn't it? Getting rid of bad people to protect good ones. The difference is in where you draw the line. Naruto leaned forward. I'm not targeting every criminal. I'm focused on those who threaten peace on a larger scale, terrorists, war criminals, those trying to resurrect organizations like the Akatsuki or continue Kagaya's work. Misa considered this. That's, actually more sustainable. Light tried to tackle too much at once. Exactly. I'm not trying to change human nature or rule through fear. I'm surgically removing cancers before they spread. A slow smile spread across Misa's face. I like it. More focused, less likely to attract the kind of attention Light did. She extended her hand. Partners? Naruto hesitated only briefly before taking it. Partners. But on my terms. We only target threats to peace, not petty criminals. Deal. Misa's grip was surprisingly firm. By the way, there's something else you should know. There's a detective in town. He arrived today, special investigator brought in to hunt Kira. Shikaku Hyoji, Naruto nodded. I know. My friend Shikamaru mentioned him. He's dangerous, Misa warned. If he's anything like L was, he'll be brilliant, resourceful, and completely dedicated to catching you. Then we'll need to be careful. Naruto glanced at the two Shinigami watching their exchange. Very careful. Misa's eyes gleamed. With 2 death notes, 2 sets of eyes, and your position in the village. We'll be unstoppable. But as she spoke, Naruto felt a flicker of unease. Was this alliance a mistake? Was he crossing a line he couldn't uncross? The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. With Misa Amane at his side, everything was about to change. As night fell over the hidden leaf, Shikaku Hyoji arranged files in his temporary office. Photos of victims, timelines, classified reports, all pointing to the same conclusion. Kira is in Konoha, he murmured, pinning another photo to his evidence board. And based on the intelligence they've accessed, they're either high-ranking or close to someone who is. He stepped back, examining the web of connections he'd mapped out. Over 100 deaths, all linked to threats against the post-war peace. All executed with precision and inside knowledge. Naruto Uzumaki, he mused, tapping a photo of the blonde ninja. War hero. Friend to the 5 Kage. Access to all the right information. He moved his finger to another photo. Or Shikamaru Nara. Intelligence Division. Tactical genius. He continued tracing possibilities, unaware that across town, the very quarry he sought was forming an alliance that would make the hunt infinitely more complicated. The game was just beginning, and none of the players, not Naruto, not Misa, not the brilliant detective, fully understood the stakes. Or how it would end. Chapter 2, Eyes of Truth. The morning sun hit Naruto's face as he sat on the Hokage monument, legs dangling over the fourth's carved forehead. His father's stone face. From up here, Konoha looked peaceful, citizens going about their business, oblivious to the threats that never materialized because of what he'd done. 43 names. That's how many he'd written in the death note so far. 43 threats eliminated before they could strike. The notebook felt heavier in his pocket with each addition. Brooding again. Ryuk floated beside him, munching an apple. You humans love your dramatic perches. I'm thinking, Naruto corrected. Misa changes everything. Last night after she'd left, he'd stayed up analyzing the risks and benefits of their partnership. On one hand, she had experience, she'd worked with the original Kira. On the other, she was unpredictable, emotional, and clearly still obsessed with Light Yagami's vision. She's interesting, that one, Ryuk commented. Not as calculating as Light, but twice as devoted. She'd die for the cause without hesitation. That's what worries me. Naruto stood up, brushing dirt from his pants. Devotion without limits is dangerous. His earpiece crackled. Naruto, you copy? Shikamaru's voice. Kakashi wants you at the intelligence briefing. 10 minutes. On my way, Naruto replied, then leaped from the monument, free-falling for several seconds before channeling chakra to his feet to run down the vertical cliff face. The Hokage Tower had been modernized like much of Konoha. Traditional architecture now housed computers, digital displays, and communication systems developed by a collaboration between ninja villages and civilian tech companies. Naruto nodded to ANBU guards as he entered the secure briefing room. Kakashi stood at the head of the table, with Shikamaru and several intelligence officers seated around it. A tall man in a dark suit stood in the corner, thin, with rectangular glasses and meticulously combed hair. "Ah, Naruto," Kakashi said. "This is Shikaku Hyoji, the special investigator I mentioned." The detective bowed slightly. "Naruto Uzumaki. Your reputation precedes you." Naruto returned the gesture, studying the man. With his Shinigami eyes, he could see Hyoji's name and lifespan clearly. Something to keep track of. If that lifespan suddenly shortened, it would mean the detective was getting too close. "Hyoji has a theory about the Kira killings," Kakashi continued. "One that concerns us directly." The detective stepped forward. "Based on the pattern of deaths and the classified intelligence the killer has accessed, I believe Kira is either a high-ranking Konoha ninja or someone with close ties to the intelligence division." Murmurs filled the room. Naruto kept his expression neutral, but noticed Shikamaru watching him with narrowed eyes. "That's a serious accusation," Naruto said carefully. "It's a serious investigation," Hyoji replied, adjusting his glasses. "Over 100 deaths across the 5 nations, all connected to threats against the post-war peace. The targeting is too precise to be coincidental." "And how exactly is Kira killing?" asked an intelligence officer. "There's no evidence of poison, jutsu residue, or physical trauma." "That's the million-ryo question, isn't it?" Hyoji's thin lips curved into a smile. "My working theory involves a new form of jutsu, one that attacks the heart directly, from a distance, requiring only the target's identity." "Closer than you think," Naruto thought, but said nothing. "We'll cooperate fully with your investigation," Kakashi assured the detective. "Though I hope you're wrong about Kira being one of ours." "For what it's worth," Hyoji said, "many citizens view Kira as a protector, not a criminal. The pattern of killings has eliminated numerous threats to civilians. Some political factions are privately supportive, even if they condemn the vigilantism publicly. Justice requires process," Kakashi said firmly. "No matter how noble the intention." As the briefing continued, Naruto's mind raced. He needed to warn Misa, adjust their operations. They'd have to be more careful about which names they wrote, how they timed the deaths. After the meeting, Shikamaru fell into step beside him in the hallway. "What do you think about this Kira situation?" "Hard to say," Naruto replied, keeping his voice casual. "Part of me understands the impulse to eliminate threats directly. We've all seen what happens when evil goes unchecked. Sure, but there's a difference between combat and execution." Shikamaru studied him closely. "You've seemed different lately. Everything okay?" "Just busy." "Why?" "No reason." Shikamaru shrugged. "Dinner at my place tonight? The old gang's getting together." "Can't." "Got plans." "With Misa, actually, but he wasn't about to say that." "Another time, then." Shikamaru nodded and headed off, but Naruto could feel his friend's suspicion lingering like a shadow. Misa hummed to herself as she arranged her hair in the hotel bathroom. Tonight was their first real strategy session as partners, and she wanted to look perfect. Not too formal, not too casual. Professional but cute. "You're treating this like a date," Rem observed from the corner. "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." Misa winked at her reflection. "Naruto's not just powerful, he's kind of hot, don't you think?" Those whisker marks are adorable. Misa. Rem's voice held a warning. Remember why you're here. To support Kira, I know. She applied a final touch of lip gloss. But who says I can't enjoy myself while doing it? Light was all work and no play. And you loved him anyway. I did. Her expression sobered momentarily. But he's gone. And Naruto, he's different. He actually seems to care about people, not just his mission. Rem sighed, a strange sound from a creature without lungs. Be careful. The death note changes humans. Even the kindest ones. Misa checked her appearance one last time before grabbing her purse. Inside was her death note, disguised as a fashion magazine, and several loose pages folded into her wallet. Never leave home without insurance. I'm always careful, she said, but they both knew that wasn't true. Naruto's apartment was on the top floor of a new building with excellent security and even better sight lines, perfect for someone constantly watching for threats. He'd chosen it strategically after the war, when his profile had risen and anonymous alone time became precious. He'd just finished setting up a secure area for their planning when Misa knocked. Unlike their first meeting, she wore casual clothes, a black skirt, striped stockings, and a red top that somehow managed to be both cute and slightly provocative. Brought dinner, she announced, holding up takeout bags. Hope you like barbecue. Who doesn't? Naruto smiled despite himself. Her energy was infectious. As they ate, Misa filled him in on what she'd learned around the village. There are cameras in the administration building, the Hokage Tower, and most public spaces. They installed them after some security breach last year. That complicates things, Naruto mused. We need to be careful about when and where we use the death note. I've got that covered. Misa pulled out what looked like a fashion magazine and flipped it open to reveal modified pages. See? I disguised mine. No one would look twice at a model reading fashion magazines. Smart, Naruto admitted, impressed despite his reservations. Also, I've been tracking Hyoji, she continued. He's methodical. Interviews witnesses in the same order for each case. Always returns to his temporary office by 8, works until midnight, then sleeps exactly 6 hours. You've been busy. I'm good at what I do. She grinned, popping a piece of meat into her mouth. So, what's our next target? Naruto hesitated, then pulled out a file. Intelligence picked up chatter about a remnant Akatsuki cell in the Land of Waves. They're planning to attack the Great Naruto Bridge during a festival next week. Thousands of civilians. Perfect. Misa clapped her hands. Give me the names. I can take care of it tonight. That's the problem. We only have descriptions, not names. I was planning to go there personally to identify them. Misa's eyes lit up. We could go together. I can spot names instantly, and you know what these terrorists look like. We'd make the perfect team. The suggestion made sense, but Naruto felt uneasy. Taking Misa into the field was risky. Still, with her eyes and his combat abilities. Fine, he decided. We leave tomorrow. Unofficial mission. It's a date. Misa chirped, then laughed at his expression. I mean, a mission. Partnership thing. Whatever. After dinner, they moved to the living room to plan specifics. Naruto spread out maps, pointing out routes and contingencies. If we're spotted, stick close to me, he instructed. I can get us out fast if needed. I'm not helpless, you know, Misa protested. I survived years as Kira's accomplice without getting caught. This isn't Tokyo. Ninja territories have different dangers. As they worked, Naruto found himself relaxing around her. Behind the bubbly facade, Misa was sharp, observant, and surprisingly tactical. Her suggestions were practical, her insights valuable. You know, she said during a pause, you're nothing like Light. Is that good or bad? Different. She twirled a strand of blonde hair. Light was calculating. Cold. Brilliant, but distant. You actually care about the people you're protecting. Isn't that the point? What good is peace if we lose our humanity achieving it? Misa studied him thoughtfully. That's why you'll succeed where he failed. Light wanted to be God. You just want to be a guardian. I'm no angel, Naruto said, looking away. The Death Note doesn't leave room for innocence. No, she agreed softly. It doesn't. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, understanding, connection, a shared burden. For a moment, they weren't Kira and second Kira, just two people carrying the weight of impossible choices. It's getting late, Naruto finally said. Early start tomorrow. After Misa left, Ryuk chuckled from his perch on the windowsill. She likes you. She likes Kira, Naruto corrected. The power, the mission. Maybe at first, Ryuk conceded. But the way she looks at you. That's not about the Death Note. Naruto didn't answer, but the Shinigami's words lingered as he prepared for bed. The Land of Waves had changed dramatically since Naruto's first mission there as a genin. The Great Naruto Bridge had transformed the island nation's economy, bringing trade, tourism, and prosperity. Modern buildings now stood alongside traditional structures, and preparations for the Bridge Festival were in full swing. Naruto and Misa arrived disguised as tourists. He wore civilian clothes with a cap pulled low, while she'd opted for a brunette wig and conservative outfit that made her nearly unrecognizable. So this bridge is named after you? Misa whispered as they walked across it. That's so cool. My first real mission, Naruto explained, memories washing over him. We protected the bridge builder from a missing nin named Zabuza and his apprentice, Haku. It was where I first really understood what it meant to be a ninja. Wow. Misa looked impressed. My first job was a toothpaste commercial when I was 14. Naruto laughed, surprised by her ability to lighten even tense situations. They spent the morning scouting the festival grounds, identifying security measures and potential vulnerabilities. According to intelligence, the Akatsuki remnants planned to detonate explosives during the main ceremony, then attack during the chaos. There, Naruto murmured, nodding toward a group of workers setting up a stage. The one with the red bandana. He matches the description of their explosives expert. Misa followed his gaze, her Shinigami eyes revealing the man's identity. Toru Matsuda. Lifespan looks normal, so he's not a Death Note user. Any others? She scanned the crowd. There, by the food stalls. Woman in green. Keiko Tanaka. And over by the bridge entrance, man checking his phone. Ryo Yamamoto. Naruto memorized the faces, matching them with the intelligence briefings. That's 3 of the 5 we're looking for. Let's keep moving. They continued their circuit, eventually identifying all 5 terrorists. Misa discreetly wrote their names in a small notebook, planning the deaths to occur at different times to avoid suspicion. Heart attack for the leader tonight, she said quietly as they sat at a cafe. The explosives expert trips and falls off the bridge tomorrow morning. Food poisoning for the woman. The other 2 get in a fight and kill each other the day after. Natural-seeming deaths, Naruto nodded approvingly. Good thinking. I learned from the best, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Naruto wondered, not for the first time, what her relationship with Light Yagami had really been like. As they finished their coffee, a commotion erupted nearby. A thief had snatched a woman's purse and was running through the crowded marketplace. Without thinking, Naruto moved. In seconds, he'd intercepted the thief, using minimal chakra to appear like a civilian with good reflexes rather than a ninja. He returned the purse to its grateful owner as the local police arrived to arrest the thief. When he returned to their table, Misa was watching him with an odd expression. What? He asked, sitting back down. You didn't hesitate, she said. Even for something small like a purse snatching, you immediately helped. Should I not have? Light would have ignored it. Said it was beneath Kira's notice. She took a sip of her coffee. You really are different. Before Naruto could respond, his phone buzzed with a message from Shikamaru. Where are you? Kakashi called emergency meeting. Hyoji has new theory about Kira. We need to go, Naruto said, showing her the message. Now. They left money on the table and headed back toward the bridge, both lost in thought. The job was done, the terrorists' names written, their attack prevented. But Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get more complicated. I'm glad we're partners, Misa said suddenly as they crossed the bridge. Not just for Kira stuff, but, it's nice not being alone with this power. Naruto glanced at her, seeing beyond the disguise to the vulnerable person beneath. Yeah, he admitted. It is. They made it back to Konoha just in time for Naruto to slip into the emergency meeting. Kakashi, Shikamaru, and several jonin were already gathered around the conference table, with Detective Hyoji standing at a digital display. Glad you could join us, Naruto, Kakashi said, his visible eye revealing nothing about what he thought of Naruto's tardiness. Sorry. Personal matter. Naruto took his seat, noting Shikamaru's scrutiny. As I was saying, Hyoji continued, the pattern has shifted. Kira is no longer just targeting high-profile threats. The latest deaths include lower-level operatives, people whose identities weren't in our highest security files. He tapped the display, showing images of the very terrorists Naruto and Misa had identified in the Land of Waves. The leader had died of a heart attack the previous night, exactly as planned. This suggests either a leak in our intelligence division or... Hyoji paused dramatically. Kira is mobile. Actively hunting targets rather than working purely from intelligence reports. Naruto kept his expression neutral, but internally he cursed. They've been too obvious, too efficient. What evidence suggests they're mobile? Shikamaru asked. The timing. These deaths occurred after local authorities reported suspicious tourists asking questions about security arrangements. Hyoji brought up grainy security footage. Unfortunately, the images are too poor quality for facial recognition. Thank the sage for small mercies, Naruto thought. We're increasing security protocols, Kakashi announced. All mission assignments, intelligence briefings, and target identifications will be compartmentalized. Need to know basis only. That won't stop them, Hyoji said confidently. It will only narrow our suspect pool when the killings continue. Are we sure these killings are actually harmful? One jonin asked. The terrorists in Wave would have killed hundreds. That's not the point, Kakashi replied sharply. No one should have the power to decide who lives and dies without accountability. After the meeting, Shikamaru cornered Naruto in the hallway. Where were you really? Like I said, personal stuff, Naruto evaded. With that blonde girl from Ichiraku? The journalist? Naruto froze. You've been following me? No, but I have eyes. You two haven't exactly been subtle. Shikamaru's gaze was piercing. What's going on, Naruto? And don't say, nothing, because we both know that's a lie. For a moment, Naruto considered telling him everything. Shikamaru was his closest friend, his strategist, the person he trusted most. But the Death Note's burden wasn't one he could share, not without making Shikamaru complicit. I'm seeing someone, he said instead. It's new. I didn't want to make a big deal about it. The timing is interesting, Shikamaru noted. She shows up, you start disappearing, Kira's pattern changes. What are you implying? Naruto's voice hardened. Nothing yet. Shikamaru stepped back. Just be careful, Naruto. Whatever's going on, don't lose yourself. As his friend walked away, Naruto felt the weight of the Death Note in his pocket like a stone. The lies were piling up, the distance between him and his friends growing. Was this how Light Yagami had felt? Gradually isolated by his secret. He needed to see Misa. Misa was waiting in her hotel room, anxiously watching the news. Her face lit up when Naruto arrived via the window rather than the door. Well? What happened? They know we were in Wave, he said grimly. Security footage caught us asking questions. But they didn't identify us. Not yet. But they're changing security protocols. Information will be harder to access. Misa chewed her lip. That complicates things. We need those names to keep operating. There's more, Naruto continued. Shikamaru's suspicious. He knows we've been spending time together. So. We're dating. That's our cover. Naruto blinked. We are. Well, that's what I've been telling people who ask why I'm interviewing you so much. Misa shrugged. It's perfect cover, right? The war hero and the journalist having a whirlwind romance. I guess it makes sense, Naruto admitted, though the thought of pretending to date Misa wasn't entirely unpleasant. But it doesn't solve our intelligence problem. Maybe it does. Misa's eyes gleamed. No one questions why a girlfriend would be at her boyfriend's apartment. If you bring documents home to review, I could create shadow clones to handle my official duties while we plan Kira operations, Naruto realized, following her logic. It might work. Of course it will work. We're the perfect team. Misa beamed, then hesitated. Unless, you're not comfortable with the dating cover. There was genuine vulnerability in her question. Naruto found himself studying her, not as Kira's ally, but as a person. Bright, resilient, smarter than she let people believe. Damaged too, carrying scars from her past with Light Yagami. No, it's fine, he said. Good strategy. Her smile returned. Great. We should probably practice, then. You know, public displays of affection to sell the cover. Practice? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Sure. Without warning, she moved closer, slipping her hand into his. Like this. Couples hold hands, right? Her hand was small but warm, fitting surprisingly well in his. Naruto found himself giving it a gentle squeeze. Right. And they do other things too, Misa continued, her voice softening as she looked up at him. For the cover, of course. Of course, Naruto murmured, but neither of them was thinking about strategy anymore. When their lips met, it wasn't part of any plan. It was impulsive, a genuine connection forming despite, or perhaps because of, the darkness they shared. The kiss deepened, and for a moment, the death notes, the investigation, the lies, all of it faded away. Above them, Ryuk and Rem exchanged glances. This was an unexpected development, even for creatures who'd watched humanity's dramas for centuries. Detective Hyoji pinned another photo to his evidence board. The mysterious couple spotted in the Land of Waves now had a prominent position in his investigation web. Tourists, he murmured, studying the grainy images. Asking about security. Present exactly when the terrorists died. He stepped back, eyes tracing connections between victims, locations, timelines. The pattern was evolving, but the underlying logic remained consistent, strategic elimination of threats, perfectly timed to prevent attacks. His phone rang, a secure line from the Land of Iron. Hyoji speaking. We received your request for additional resources, his superior said without preamble. Denied. Sir, with respect, the political situation is complicated. Several daimyos have privately expressed support for Kira's actions. They see the results, terrorist plots foiled, criminal organizations dismantled, stability maintained. So justice takes a back seat to politics? Hyoji couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. Justice is not our only consideration. The 5 great nations are enjoying unprecedented peace. Some leaders prefer not to question the methods. And when Kira decides politicians are the next threat? What then? Silence greeted his question. Finally, his superior sighed. Continue your investigation, but quietly. If you identify Kira, report directly to me before taking action. Understood? Understood, sir. After hanging up, Hyoji returned to his evidence board. Politics might be complicated, but his mission wasn't. Kira was a killer, regardless of targets or methods. And killers belonged in prison. His gaze settled on a photo of Naruto Uzumaki leaving the Hokage Tower. The war hero had access, opportunity, and the right psychological profile, someone who'd seen too much death, who might believe the system was inadequate to maintain peace. And recently, he'd started spending time with a mysterious blonde woman who'd arrived in the village just as Kira's pattern shifted. What are you hiding, Uzumaki? Hyoji murmured. And who is she? Over the next few weeks, Naruto and Misa settled into their partnership, both as Kira and as a public couple. Their cover relationship gave them plenty of opportunities to work together without raising suspicions, while providing a plausible explanation for Naruto's absences from social gatherings. The investigation continued, but with information now compartmentalized, they had to be more creative. Naruto used shadow clones to be in multiple places simultaneously, maintaining his public duties while working with Misa. She, meanwhile, used her charm and celebrity status to gather intelligence from sources outside the official channels. They established rules for the Death Note: only confirmed threats, no political targets unless absolutely necessary, deaths spaced out and varied to avoid obvious patterns. And to their surprise, the fake relationship began feeling increasingly real. Your friends are staring again, Misa whispered as they shared lunch at a busy restaurant. Across the room, Sakura, Ino, and Hinata were poorly disguising their interest. They're just not used to seeing me with someone, Naruto replied, his arm casually draped over her shoulders. Especially someone as gorgeous, brilliant, fashionable, Misa suggested teasingly. I was going to say from outside the ninja world, but those two, he laughed. The ease between them felt natural now. What had started as strategy had evolved into genuine affection. Naruto found himself looking forward to their time together, not just for Kira operations but for Misa herself, her energy, her resilience, the way she made him laugh even when things were dire. Naruto. Sakura approached their table, the others trailing behind her. You've been so busy lately. We hardly see you anymore. Sorry about that, Naruto smiled apologetically. Between missions and spending time with Misa. It's my fault, Misa said cheerfully. I've been monopolizing him for my article series. Is that what they're calling it these days? Ino teased, making Misa giggle and Naruto blush. As they chatted, Naruto noticed Hinata's quiet observation. Of all his friends, she seemed the most troubled by his relationship with Misa, not from jealousy, but from concern. Her Byakugan eyes saw more than most, and sometimes Naruto wondered if she sensed the changes in his chakra, the weight he carried. Later that evening, they returned to Naruto's apartment to review new intelligence about a potential threat in the land of Earth. As they worked, Misa noticed his distraction. What's wrong? She asked, setting aside the reports. Just thinking, Naruto replied, looking out the window toward the Hokage monument. About what we're doing. Where this leads. We're saving lives, Misa said firmly. Protecting peace. By becoming judge, jury, and executioner. He turned to face her. The Death Note changes people, Misa. I can feel it changing me. Making decisions easier that should be hard. She moved to his side, taking his hand. Light lost himself because he wanted to be a god. You're different. You use the power, but you don't let it use you. Don't I? Naruto's voice was quiet. I've written 57 names now. 57 lives ended because I decided they were threats. How is that different from playing God? Because you struggle with it, Misa said simply. Because it hurts you every time. That's how I know you won't become what Light did. She reached up to touch his face, her eyes serious beneath her usual cheerful expression. I've seen what the Death Note does to people. I watched it consume Light until nothing was left but Kira. But you're stronger than he was. Not stronger, Naruto disagreed. Just not alone. He covered her hand with his. I have you to keep me grounded. The moment hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Then Misa stood on tiptoes to kiss him, not for show this time, not for any audience, but because she wanted to. Because something real had grown between them, something neither had expected. Ryuk watched from the ceiling, chuckling. Humans. Always making things complicated. Rem, hovering nearby, didn't share his amusement. He makes her happy, the Shinigami observed. But the Death Note never leads to happiness. Not in the end. That's what makes it interesting, Ryuk replied, reaching for an apple. You never know how the story ends. Shikamaru Nara prided himself on pattern recognition. As Konoha's chief strategist, his job depended on identifying connections others missed. And lately, one pattern had been keeping him awake at night. His best friend was hiding something significant. The changes had been subtle at first. Naruto's occasional absences, his distracted manner during meetings, the way he sometimes knew things about threats before they were briefed. Then came the blonde journalist, Misa Amane, and the changes accelerated. Now Shikamaru sat in his office, a separate evidence board hidden behind a false wall. On it, he'd mapped his own investigation into Kira, an investigation focused primarily on Naruto Uzumaki. It doesn't make sense, he muttered, studying the timeline he'd created. The deaths match intelligence Naruto had access to, but the method is impossible. No jutsu can cause heart attacks at a distance without some physical connection. Yet the evidence kept pointing to his friend. Naruto's absences aligned perfectly with confirmed Kira killings. His strange behavior intensified after Misa's arrival. And most damning, shadow clones had been spotted in two places simultaneously during the Land of Waves incident, meaning the real Naruto was somewhere else. What aren't I seeing? Shikamaru paced, hands forming his thinking gesture. What connects Naruto, Misa, and these deaths? His door opened without a knock, only one person did that. Working late again? Temari asked, setting a bento box on his desk. You missed dinner. Sorry, Shikamaru gestured vaguely at his documents. Got caught up. His wife studied the visible files, careful not to reveal the hidden investigation board. The Kira case? I thought Hyoji was handling that. He is. I'm just, consulting. Temari sat on the edge of his desk. You're worried about Naruto. It wasn't a question. Shikamaru stopped pacing, shoulders slumping. Something's wrong, Temari. He's changed. And it started before Misa, though she's part of it now. Have you considered that maybe he's just happy? In love? Moving forward with his life? I've considered every possibility. Shikamaru met her gaze. Including that my best friend might be Kira. Temari's eyes widened. That's a serious accusation. Why do you think I haven't shared it? If I'm right. He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. And if you're wrong, you've suspected your closest friend of mass murder. Temari's voice softened. What does your gut tell you? Shikamaru closed his eyes. That Naruto would never harm innocents. That he'd die protecting people. But also, that he's capable of making impossible choices when he believes they're necessary. Then maybe start there, Temari suggested. Not as an investigator, but as his friend. Talk to him. Without accusations. And what if he is Kira? Temari was quiet for a moment. Then you'll have a different choice to make. But make it with all the facts. After she left, Shikamaru uncovered his evidence board and added one more note, confront Naruto. It was the most troublesome move he could imagine, but he was out of alternatives. Detective Hyoji's investigation had hit a wall. Despite additional surveillance, intelligence reviews, and witness interviews, he couldn't definitively identify Kira. The compartmentalized information had worked against his investigation. Without access to all the data, he couldn't establish the clear patterns he needed. But he had narrowed his suspects to 3, Shikamaru Nara, strategic genius with access to all intelligence. Kakashi Hatake, the Hokage himself, with the authority to classify or declassify any information. Naruto Uzumaki, war hero with high clearance and a mysterious new girlfriend. Of the 3, Naruto increasingly seemed the most likely. His psychological profile fit, someone who'd seen too much war, who'd lost people he cared about, who might decide that traditional justice was too slow or too weak to maintain peace. Plus, there was Misa Amane. Hyoji had run a background check and found concerning gaps in her history, periods where she disappeared completely, coinciding with the original Kira killings in Japan years earlier. The connection was tenuous but troubling. Time for a more direct approach, he decided. The next morning, he requested a private meeting with Naruto. They met at a secure room in the Hokage Tower, with recording devices disabled at Hyoji's request for sensitive discussions. "Thank you for meeting me," the detective said as Naruto took a seat across from him. "I wanted to discuss the Kira investigation directly with you, given your unique perspective." "My perspective?" Naruto kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced. Was this a trap? As someone who's fought for peace, who's seen what happens when evil goes unchecked. Hyoji leaned forward. "Tell me honestly, Uzumaki-san. Do you believe Kira is wrong to eliminate threats before they materialize?" "A test, then." Naruto chose his words carefully. "I believe in justice. But I've also seen how traditional methods can fail. When Madara and Kaguya threatened the world, we didn't arrest them, we fought to stop them by any means necessary." An interesting comparison. "You see Kira as fighting a war, not committing murder." "I didn't say that," Naruto countered. "I'm just acknowledging the complexity. These aren't simple crimes, they're existential threats to the peace we sacrificed so much to achieve." Hyoji's thin lips curved into a smile. "And if you were Kira? What would your justification be?" "If I were Kira," Naruto said steadily, holding the detective's gaze, "I'd say I was doing what no one else could, protecting people from threats they never see coming." "Noble sentiment," Hyoji nodded. "Many agree with you. Did you know that approval ratings for Kira have reached 60% in civilian polls? People feel safer knowing someone is eliminating threats before they materialize." "Public opinion doesn't determine justice," Naruto replied, echoing Kakashi's earlier statement. "No, it doesn't." Hyoji stood, signaling the end of their meeting. "But it does complicate my job considerably. Thank you for your insight, Uzumaki-san. I'm sure we'll speak again soon." After the detective left, Naruto released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The conversation had been a minefield, each question designed to trap him into revealing something. Had he given himself away? Or successfully navigated the detective's suspicions? Only time would tell. "He suspects you," Misa declared when Naruto told her about the interview. They were in her hotel room, which they'd swept for listening devices before speaking. "Trust me, I recognize the technique. L used to do the same thing with light." "I was careful," Naruto assured her. "Didn't admit anything. It's not about admissions. It's about reactions." Misa paced anxiously. "The way you phrase things, micro-expressions, what you focus on. Detective L could read light like a book sometimes." Naruto sat on the edge of her bed, watching her movements. "So what do we do?" "We could eliminate him," she suggested. "Heart attack, make it look natural." "No." Naruto's response was immediate and firm. "Hyoji isn't a threat to peace, he's just doing his job. We don't target law enforcement. He's trying to catch us. And killing him would prove he was right about us. Naruto ran a hand through his hair. Besides, if he dies suddenly, they'll just send someone else, someone who starts with us as the prime suspects. Misa stopped pacing. You're right. Sorry. Old habits. She sat beside him, leaning against his shoulder. Light would have killed him without hesitation. I'm not Light. No. She smiled up at him. You're better. The simple statement caught him off guard. For weeks, he'd been hearing about Light Yagami, his brilliance, his vision, his tactical mind. Misa had idolized him, maybe still did. To hear her say Naruto was better felt significant somehow. We need to be smarter, he said, refocusing on the problem. More careful about which names we write and when. And we should consider a contingency if things go wrong. What kind of contingency? If either of us is caught, the other continues the mission. And he hesitated, we protect each other's identities, no matter what. I'd never betray you, Misa said fiercely. Never. Naruto studied her face, completely sincere, utterly devoted. Not just to Kira now, he realized, but to him personally. The realization was both warming and terrifying. Same, he promised. We're in this together. Their planning session turned into dinner, then a movie on the hotel room's TV, then simply enjoying each other's company. Their relationship had evolved far beyond its cover story origins. What had started as strategy had become real, a connection neither had expected but both now valued. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, Misa traced the whisker marks on his cheeks. Do you ever regret picking up the Death Note? Naruto considered the question seriously. Sometimes. It's a burden I never asked for. But then I think about the lives saved, the attacks prevented. He sighed. The hard part isn't using the power, it's knowing when to stop. Where to draw the line. Light never figured that out, Misa whispered. The line kept moving until there wasn't one anymore. That won't happen to us, Naruto promised, though he wondered if he was trying to convince her or himself. How can you be sure? Because we have each other. He pulled her closer. You keep me human, Misa. You remind me why we're doing this. She nestled against him, the Death Note temporarily forgotten as they found comfort in each other's warmth. Above them, Ryuk and Rem exchanged glances, one amused, one concerned. The partnership between their humans had evolved into something neither Shinigami had anticipated. Interesting development, Ryuk commented when the humans had fallen asleep. Adds a whole new dimension to the game. This isn't a game, Rem replied sharply. Misa's happiness is at stake. And what happens when the Death Note inevitably brings tragedy? Ryuk countered. It always does, you know. No human story with the Death Note ends happily. Rem had no answer for that. The Shinigami could only watch and wait, like the eternal observer she was. The breaking point came 3 days later. Naruto was in a security briefing when the news arrived, a village in the Land of Fire, just a few hours from Konoha, had been massacred. Early reports indicated it was the work of Otsutsuki cultists, the same group Naruto and Misa had been tracking but hadn't yet identified by name. 73 civilians dead. 17 children among them. We had intelligence about this group, Shikamaru said, his voice tight with anger. But it was classified under the new protocols. Only 3 people had access. The implication hung in the air. If Kira had known, this might have been prevented. Naruto felt sick. People had died because information had been restricted, because of the hunt for him. The very thing he'd been trying to prevent with the Death Note had happened anyway, partly because of his actions. I want all restrictions lifted, Kakashi ordered, his normally calm demeanor shaken. Full information sharing between departments. We can't let this happen again. After the briefing, Naruto headed straight for Misa's hotel. His mind was made up. They needed to accelerate their plans, eliminate the entire cult leadership before another attack occurred. The risks of discovery no longer mattered compared to preventing another massacre. He found Misa already packing her backpack with supplies, including her death note. "You heard," she said when he entered. "Not a question." "We're going after them," Naruto confirmed. "Tonight." "Already planned the route. If we leave now, we can reach their main compound by midnight." Their efficiency was born of practice. Weeks of working together had made them anticipate each other's thoughts, coordinate without extensive discussion. Within minutes they were ready, disguises prepared, supplies packed. As they headed for the village gates, a familiar voice called out. "Going somewhere?" Shikamaru stepped from the shadows, hands in his pockets but posture alert. "Mission," Naruto said shortly. "Can't talk about it." "Funny, I don't remember Kakashi assigning you anything." Shikamaru's gaze shifted to Misa, then back to Naruto. "And I definitely don't recall civilian journalists being approved for field operations." "Shikamaru," Naruto warned. "Not now." "If not now, when?" His friend's voice hardened. "After you've written more names in that notebook you're carrying." Naruto froze. Beside him, Misa tensed, her hands sliding toward her purse where pages of the death note were hidden. "Don't," Naruto murmured to her. To Shikamaru, he said, "What are you talking about?" "I'm not stupid, Naruto." Shikamaru stepped closer. "The absences. The information you shouldn't have. The mysterious deaths that align perfectly with threats you knew about. And then she arrives," he nodded toward Misa, "and suddenly the pattern changes. More deaths, different targets. You've been investigating me," Naruto realized. "Your own friend." "I've been trying to understand what happened to my friend," Shikamaru corrected. "Because the Naruto I know wouldn't appoint himself judge, jury, and executioner without a trial." "And what about today?" Naruto demanded, anger rising. 73 people dead because information was restricted. Because of the hunt for Kira. For me. Would a trial have saved them? "So it is you," Shikamaru said quietly. "I kept hoping I was wrong." The three stood in tense silence, the moment balanced on a knife's edge. Misa looked ready to pull out her death note page at any second. Naruto could feel the weight of his own notebook in his pack, just one name away from eliminating the threat Shikamaru now posed. But this was Shikamaru. His strategist. His friend since childhood. "What are you going to do?" Naruto finally asked. Shikamaru sighed, a deep, weary sound. "I don't know yet. But I do know this. If you leave the village right now, looking like you're running, it confirms every suspicion Hyoji has. He's watching, Naruto. He's just waiting for you to make a mistake. Those cultists will attack again," Naruto argued. "We can stop them." "At what cost?" Shikamaru challenged. "Your humanity. Your future. Everything you've worked for." Misa stepped forward. "You don't understand what's at stake." "I understand perfectly," Shikamaru replied. "You're the second Kira, aren't you? The one who worked with Light Yagami in Japan. That's why you came to Konoha, to find the new Kira." Misa's eyes widened. "How did you?" "Process of elimination. Your background has convenient gaps that align with the original Kira killings. And your devotion to Naruto happened too quickly to be natural unless you were already devoted to what he represents." "You really are a genius," Misa said, sounding impressed despite the situation. "Shikamaru," Naruto tried again. "People will die if we don't act. And part of you will die if you continue down this path." Shikamaru's expression softened. "I've watched it happening, Naruto. The changes. The coldness that creeps in when you think no one's looking. The accusation hit home because there was truth in it." Naruto had felt the changes himself, the way decisions that should be agonizing became easier, the distance growing between himself and friends who didn't share his burden. "So what's your suggestion?" he asked. "Come back to my office. Both of you. Let's talk this through rationally, find another way to stop the cultists without compromising who you are." It was a reasonable request. The smart move. But time was ticking, and somewhere in the darkness, cultists were planning their next attack. Naruto looked at Misa, then back at his oldest friend. The choice before him wasn't just tactical, it was fundamental. Who was he becoming? What lines wouldn't he cross? And could he find a way forward that preserved both his humanity and the peace he'd sacrificed so much to achieve? The moment stretched, heavy with consequence. Whatever he decided now would change everything. "Fine," Naruto finally said. "Your office. 10 minutes. Relief washed over Shikamaru's face. "Thank you." As they walked back toward the intelligence building, Naruto's mind raced. Shikamaru knew. The careful balance they'd maintained was crumbling. But killing his friend had never been an option, some lines couldn't be crossed. Beside him, Misa walked silently, her expression troubled. She'd been ready to write Shikamaru's name, Naruto had seen it in her eyes. Light Yagami's influence ran deep, but she had restrained herself. For him. Shikamaru's office was secure, designed for classified conversations. Once inside, he activated privacy seals before turning to face them. "Show me," he said simply. Naruto hesitated, then removed the death note from his pack. Black cover, white lettering, innocent-looking yet infinitely dangerous. "This is it. This is how you kill." Shikamaru examined the notebook without touching it. "Yes," Naruto confirmed. "Write a name while picturing the person's face, and they die. Default is heart attack, but you can specify other methods." "And you found this, where?" "It fell from the sky," Naruto explained. "Dropped by a Shinigami named Ryuk, who's probably listening to this conversation right now." On cue, Ryuk cackled from the corner of the room. "Smart friend you've got, Naruto. Most humans would have used the note by now." "I can't see or hear any Shinigami unless I touch the notebook," Shikamaru stated, still not reaching for it. "Correct," Misa confirmed. "I have one too. And we both traded for the Shinigami eyes, the ability to see people's names and lifespans just by looking at them. At the cost of half your remaining lifespan," Naruto added. Shikamaru absorbed this information with remarkable composure. "So you've been using this Death Note to eliminate threats. Terrorists, cultists, remnants of Kagaya's followers." "Yes," Naruto nodded. "Only confirmed threats. People who would kill innocents if left unchecked." "And you?" Shikamaru turned to Misa. "What's your role in this?" "I came looking for Kira," she admitted. "The pattern of deaths reminded me of Light, the original Kira. I wanted to find whoever was continuing his work. To help them," Shikamaru concluded. "Because you believe in Kira's mission." "I believe in protecting people," Misa corrected. "And I believe in Naruto." Shikamaru paced the small office, hands forming his thinking gesture. "The cultists who attacked today. You were going after them." "We've been tracking them for weeks," Naruto explained. "But we didn't have names or faces until recently. If information hadn't been restricted because of the Kira investigation, Shikamaru cut him off. "Don't make this about policy. This is about you using a supernatural notebook to kill people without trial or oversight. Because the alternative is waiting until they've already killed." Naruto's frustration boiled over. How many more villages have to be massacred while we gather evidence and build cases? "So your solution is to appoint yourself executioner? Where does it end, Naruto?" Shikamaru demanded. "Today it's cultists. Tomorrow, what? Politicians you disagree with? People who threaten your secret?" "That's not fair," Misa interjected. Naruto has been incredibly careful about who he targets. He's nothing like Light was. Yet, Shikamaru said pointedly. But power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. No one should have this ability. The truth of his words hung in the air. Naruto had felt the changes himself, the subtle shifts in his thinking, the coldness that sometimes crept into his decisions. The Death Note was changing him, just as it had changed Light Yagami. So what's your solution? Naruto asked quietly. Turn ourselves in. Let Hyoji parade us as criminals while threats go unchallenged. Shikamaru was silent for a long moment, clearly weighing options, calculating outcomes. No, he finally said. That's not my solution. Then what? Misa pressed. A compromise. Shikamaru met Naruto's gaze directly. You use the notebook one more time, to eliminate the immediate threat from these cultists. I'll provide the intelligence, all the names and faces we have. But afterward, you stop. Find another way or let the system work. And if we refuse? Naruto asked, though he already knew the answer. Then I go to Kakashi with everything I know. Shikamaru's expression was resolute. I don't want to, but I will. Because I won't watch my best friend destroy himself with this power. It was an ultimatum, but also a lifeline, a chance to step back from the abyss before it was too late. Naruto looked at Misa, seeing the conflict in her eyes. She had followed Light Yagami's path to its bitter end once before. Did she want to walk that road again? One more operation, Naruto decided. The cult leaders. Then we talk about next steps. Relief flickered across Shikamaru's face. Agreed. As they began planning the cultist operation, integrating Shikamaru's intelligence with their Death Note strategy, Naruto felt a strange lightening of his burden. Someone else knew. Someone else understood. The isolation that had been growing around him had cracked, just a little. Perhaps there was a way forward that didn't end in tragedy, for him, for Misa, for the fragile peace they were all trying to protect. But as they worked into the night, Ryuk's laughter echoed in Naruto's ears, a reminder that the Shinigami knew something they didn't. No human story involving the Death Note had ever ended happily. Not yet, anyway. Dawn broke over Konoha as Naruto, Misa, and Shikamaru completed their plan. The cult had 13 leaders, all identified with photos and confirmed names thanks to Shikamaru's intelligence access. Their deaths would be staggered over 3 days, appearing as accidents, suicides, and only a few heart attacks to avoid an obvious pattern. This feels strange, Shikamaru admitted as they finalized the details. Planning executions like this. Welcome to our world, Misa said, without her usual cheerfulness. The night had been long, tensions high. It's necessary, Naruto reminded them. These people massacred a village. They'll do it again if we don't stop them. I know, Shikamaru sighed. Just because I understand the logic doesn't mean I have to like the method. As they prepared to implement the plan, a sharp knock came at the office door. Before they could hide the Death Note, the door opened to reveal Detective Hyoji, flanked by 2 ANBU agents. Interesting gathering, the detective observed, taking in the scene. Working late, Nara-san. With a war hero and a journalist, no less. Naruto casually slid the Death Note under some papers while Shikamaru stepped forward. Emergency planning session, he explained smoothly. After yesterday's attack, we're coordinating response options. Without the Hokage? Hyoji raised an eyebrow. And with a civilian present? Misa has connections in regions where the cult has been spotted, Naruto improvised. She's been helping us map their movements. How civic-minded of her. Hyoji's gaze lingered on the partly concealed notebook. What's that you're hiding, Uzumaki-san? Tension electrified the air. One wrong move and everything would unravel. Naruto calculated his options. The ANBU were elite, but he was still arguably the strongest ninja in the village. A distraction might give them time to escape. But then what? Become fugitives? Abandon the village he'd sworn to protect? Before he could decide, Shikamaru spoke. It's classified intelligence, Hyoji-san. I'm afraid you don't have clearance. Is that so? The detective smiled thinly. Because I've just received expanded authority from the daimyo himself. After yesterday's tragedy, I've been granted access to all intelligence related to the cult investigation. He extended a hand. The document, please. Checkmate. If they refused, it would confirm his suspicions. If they complied, he would see the death note. Actually, a new voice interrupted, that won't be necessary. Kakashi stood in the doorway behind Hyoji, his visible eye hard. Hokage-sama, Hyoji turned, momentarily thrown off balance. I wasn't aware you were joining us. Clearly, Kakashi replied dryly. I received word of your expanded authority. Unfortunately, it doesn't supersede mine in my own village. My team is handling the cult response. Your investigation remains focused on Kira. With respect, Hokage-sama, I believe the two are connected. Hyoji's gaze slid back to Naruto. Very connected. Your theory has been noted, Kakashi said dismissively. Now, I need to speak with my team privately. Intelligence matters. For a moment, it seemed Hyoji might argue. Then he bowed slightly. Of course. We'll continue this discussion later. To Naruto, he added, very soon, I think. After the detective and Anbu departed, Kakashi closed the door and activated his own privacy seals, stronger than Shikamaru's. Explain, he said simply. Everything. The three exchanged glances. There was no hiding it now. Shikamaru nodded almost imperceptibly, a signal that honesty was their only viable option. Naruto took a deep breath and pulled out the death note. It started 3 months ago, when I found this. The explanation took over an hour. Kakashi listened without interruption as Naruto described finding the death note, meeting Ryuk, making the eye trade, and eventually partnering with Misa. Shikamaru filled in details about his parallel investigation, while Misa explained her history with the original Kira. When they finished, Kakashi sat in silence for a long moment, his expression unreadable behind his mask. Show me, he finally said. Naruto hesitated, then pushed the death note across the desk. If you touch it, you'll be able to see Ryuk. Kakashi examined the notebook without touching it. And this works. Write a name while picturing a face, and that person dies. Yes, Naruto confirmed. Default is heart attack after 40 seconds, but you can specify other causes and details. Convenient, Kakashi murmured. And terrible. He looked up, his single visible eye holding Naruto's gaze. You understand what you've done? The line you've crossed? I do, Naruto admitted. But I also understand what would have happened if I hadn't. The attacks that would have succeeded. The lives that would have been lost. The end justifies the means. Kakashi shook his head. I taught you better than that, Naruto. The disappointment in his former sensei's voice cut deeper than anger would have. Naruto looked away, unable to meet Kakashi's gaze. What now? Shikamaru asked. Hyoji is closing in. It's only a matter of time before he finds concrete evidence. Kakashi rubbed his masked chin thoughtfully. The cult must be stopped. That's non-negotiable after yesterday's massacre. But afterward. He fixed Naruto with a hard stare. Afterward, this ends. The notebook, the killings, all of it. And if more threats emerge? Naruto challenged. Do we just wait for them to strike? We handle them the way we always have, Kakashi replied firmly. Through intelligence, through collaboration between villages, through traditional methods. Not by becoming what we fight against. Misa, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. You don't understand what this notebook can do. The protection it provides. I understand power, Amane-san. Kakashi's voice softened slightly. And I understand how it corrupts, especially when wielded in secret, without accountability. The truth of his words hung heavy in the air. For months, Naruto had been judge, jury, and executioner, making decisions that affected thousands without oversight or challenge. Even with the best intentions, such power inevitably warped perspective. One final operation, Kakashi decided. The cult leadership, using all our combined intelligence. After that, we discuss permanent containment of the notebooks. Containment? Misa looked alarmed. You can't just lock them away. They're too valuable. That's exactly why they must be contained, Kakashi countered. No single person, not even Naruto, should wield such absolute power. The argument continued, but the outcome was inevitable. Kakashi's authority as Hokage was absolute within the village, and his mind was clearly made up. By midday, they had a new plan, one that combined traditional ninja operations with strategic use of the Death Note to eliminate the cult's core leadership. As they prepared to implement it, Naruto pulled Kakashi aside. Thank you, he said quietly. For not turning us in immediately. I've known you since you were 12, Naruto, Kakashi replied. Your heart has always been in the right place, even when your methods weren't. His visible eye crinkled in what might have been a smile beneath his mask. But this power, it's changing you. You must see that. I do, Naruto admitted. That's what scares me the most. Good. Fear keeps us human. Kakashi placed a hand on his former student's shoulder. When this is over, we'll find a solution. Together. The promise offered hope, a path back from the edge Naruto had been walking. But as they rejoined the others, Ryuk's amused chuckle from overhead reminded him that things involving the Death Note rarely ended as planned. The Shinigami knew something they didn't. And soon, they would all discover what it was. The operation against the cult went exactly as planned, almost too perfectly. Using Shikamaru's intelligence and Kakashi's strategic guidance, Naruto and Misa wrote the names of all 13 cult leaders in their respective death notes. The deaths were carefully timed and varied in method: heart attacks, accidents, apparent suicides, even one death that looked like a rival cult attack. Within 48 hours, the Otsutsuki cult was effectively decapitated. Without leadership, the remaining members scattered, many turning themselves in to avoid the wrath of whatever force had eliminated their superiors. It worked, Shikamaru noted as they gathered in Kakashi's secure office to review the results. Almost too easily. That's the insidious appeal of the Death Note, Naruto said grimly. Clean, efficient, untraceable. No wonder Light Yagami thought he could become a god with it. Misa flinched slightly at the comparison. In the days since their confrontation with Shikamaru and Kakashi, she'd been uncharacteristically subdued, her usual energy dimmed. The impending loss of the Death Note weighed heavily on her, more heavily, Naruto suspected, than it did on him. Now comes the difficult part, Kakashi said. Containing the notebooks and addressing the investigation. Hyoji won't stop, Shikamaru warned. He's convinced Naruto is Kira, and he's methodically building a case. Without evidence, suspicion isn't enough, Kakashi replied. And with the death notes secured, no new Kira killings will occur to fuel his investigation. What exactly are you planning to do with them? Misa asked, unable to keep the anxiety from her voice. Kakashi considered her question. A secure facility, known only to the 5 Kage. Constant guard rotation to prevent any single person from being influenced too long. Regular inspection to ensure they haven't been used. It won't work, Misa said flatly. The Death Note, it has its own will, almost. It finds ways back into human hands. She's right, Ryuk confirmed, though only Naruto and Misa could hear him. Death Notes belong in the human world once dropped. They have a way of circulating. Then we destroy them, Shikamaru suggested. You can't, Misa shook her head. We tried that before. They can't be destroyed by normal means. Fire? Water? Physical force? Kakashi pressed. None of it works, Naruto confirmed, remembering his own early experiments. The pages don't burn, don't tear, don't dissolve. There must be a way, Kakashi insisted. Everything has a weakness. As they debated containment strategies, Naruto noticed Misa becoming increasingly agitated. Her hands trembled slightly, her gaze darting to her purse where her death note was hidden. The prospect of surrendering it clearly terrified her on some fundamental level. We should take a break, he suggested. Clear our heads, come back fresh tomorrow. Kakashi seemed about to object, then noticed Misa's state and nodded. Good idea. We'll reconvene in the morning. Until then, I'll keep both notebooks in my personal safe. No. Misa's objection was instant and visceral. Misa, Naruto said gently, taking her hand. It's just overnight. We agreed the notebooks need containment. But. She looked at him, eyes wide with something like panic. You don't understand. Without it, I'm nothing. The raw vulnerability in her voice silenced the room. In that moment, Naruto glimpsed the true depth of her attachment to the Death Note, not just as a tool or weapon, but as a core part of her identity. Light Yagami's influence ran deeper than any of them had realized. You're not nothing, Naruto said firmly, squeezing her hand. You're Misa Amane. The notebook doesn't define you. Doesn't it? She whispered. Before I found it, I was just another model, just another pretty face. The Death Note gave me purpose. Connection. It brought me to light, and now to you. And those connections remain even without the notebook, Naruto assured her. I'm not going anywhere, Misa. Something in his words seemed to reach her. She took a deep breath, visibly composing herself. Promise? Promise, he said, meaning it. Whatever had started between them as strategy had evolved into something real, something he wasn't willing to lose, with or without the Death Note. Reluctantly, Misa surrendered her notebook. Kakashi secured both Death Notes in his office safe, setting multiple seals that only he could deactivate. As they left the Hokage Tower, Naruto kept his arm around Misa's shoulders, offering silent support. Behind them, unseen by Kakashi or Shikamaru, Ryuk and Rem floated in conversation. Interesting development, Ryuk commented. I didn't expect the Hokage to get involved directly. It changes nothing, Rem replied. The notebooks will find a way back into circulation. They always do. True, Ryuk cackled. But it does add a delicious complication, doesn't it? Just when things were getting predictable. Neither Shinigami mentioned what they both knew, the clock was ticking on their time in the human world. Without possession of a Death Note, Naruto and Misa would soon lose their ability to see or interact with the Death Gods. And with that loss would come the erasure of all their memories associated with the notebooks. A clean slate. A fresh start. But first, they had to survive Hyoji's investigation. Detective Shikaku Hyoji sensed the shift immediately. Despite having no concrete evidence, his instincts told him something had changed within the Hokage's inner circle. The tension he'd observed during their confrontation in Shikamaru's office, the defensive posturing, it all pointed to a secret now shared among them. They're protecting him, he murmured, updating his evidence board. The Hokage and his chief strategist are now complicit, either actively or passively. But complicit in what, exactly? The Kira killings had seemingly stopped after the systematic elimination of the cult leadership. No new unexplained deaths had occurred in the 3 days since. Had Kira ceased operations? Gone dormant? Or had something more significant changed? Hyoji paced his temporary office, mind racing through possibilities. The sudden inclusion of Kakashi and Shikamaru in whatever secret Naruto was keeping suggested intervention rather than cooperation. They weren't joining Kira, they were containing him. The murder weapon, he realized suddenly. They've secured whatever method Kira was using. It made perfect sense. Kakashi, faced with evidence that his former student was Kira, would prioritize stopping the killings while protecting both Naruto and the village's reputation. Confiscation of the murder method, whatever it was, accomplished both goals. But Hyoji's mission wasn't just to stop Kira, it was to bring him to justice. Naruto Uzumaki had killed over 100 people, regardless of their criminal status. Such power, wielded without oversight or accountability, couldn't go unchallenged. Time for a direct approach, he decided. The next morning, he bypassed protocol and went straight to Naruto's apartment, arriving just as the war hero was leaving for the day. Uzumaki-san, he called, approaching with casual confidence. A moment of your time. Naruto tensed visibly before composing himself. Detective. What can I do for you? Walk with me, Hyoji suggested. I find fresh air conducive to honest conversation. They strolled through a nearby park, outwardly casual but both hyper-aware of the other's every movement and word. You've been avoiding me, Hyoji observed. I've been busy, Naruto countered. Village security doesn't maintain itself. Indeed. Especially with threats being systematically eliminated before they materialize. Hyoji studied Naruto's profile. Interesting how the Kira killings have stopped. Almost as if someone intervened. Naruto said nothing, his expression carefully neutral. I have a theory, Hyoji continued. Would you like to hear it? Do I have a choice? You always have choices, Uzumaki-san. That's rather the point. Hyoji stopped walking, turning to face Naruto directly. My theory is this, you are Kira. You've been using some method, perhaps a previously unknown jutsu, to eliminate threats from a distance. Recently, the Hokage discovered your activities and confiscated whatever method you were using, choosing to protect you rather than expose you. Naruto's face betrayed nothing, but Hyoji noticed the slight tensing of his shoulders. Interesting theory, Naruto finally said. Creative. But without evidence, that's all it is. Evidence can be gathered, Hyoji replied confidently. Or it can be provided voluntarily, in exchange for consideration. Consideration. Reduced consequences. Acknowledgement of mitigating factors. Hyoji's voice softened slightly. You're a war hero, Uzumaki-san. Your service and sacrifices would be taken into account. For a moment, something flickered in Naruto's eyes, consideration, perhaps, or simple weariness. Then it was gone, replaced by resolute calm. If I were Kira, he said carefully, which I'm not, I would have eliminated threats that the traditional system failed to address. Saved countless lives. Protected the peace so many died to achieve. He met Hyoji's gaze directly. Would that truly deserve punishment? Justice isn't about deserving, Hyoji replied. It's about process. Rules. Boundaries that separate civilization from tyranny. He adjusted his glasses. Even the noblest intentions can't justify appointing oneself judge, jury, and executioner. And what about the victims of those we fail to stop? Who judges the system when it fails them? The question hung between them, weighted with genuine moral complexity. Hyoji considered his response carefully. Imperfect justice is still preferable to perfect tyranny, he finally said. Because tyranny, no matter how benevolent initially, inevitably corrupts. Naruto looked away, his expression troubled. And if the system is too slow? Too bound by procedure while people die? Then we improve the system, Hyoji answered simply. We don't abandon it for the judgment of one person, no matter how well-intentioned. They resumed walking, silent for several minutes as the conversation's weight settled between them. Finally, Hyoji spoke again. Think about what I've said, Uzumaki-san. My investigation continues, but the outcome isn't yet fixed. Your choices in the coming days will matter significantly. Is that a threat or an offer? Naruto asked quietly. Consider it a recognition of reality, Hyoji replied. I'll find the truth eventually. How much damage occurs in the process depends largely on you. With that, he departed, leaving Naruto standing alone in the morning sunlight, his thoughts visibly troubled. He knows, Naruto told Shikamaru and Kakashi later that morning. Not everything, but enough to be dangerous. They had gathered in Kakashi's private office, away from potential surveillance. The death notes remained secured in the Hokage's special safe, untouched since being surrendered. Did he mention evidence? Shikamaru asked. No. I think he's fishing, hoping for a confession. Naruto ran a hand through his hair. But he's persistent. Eventually, he'll find something concrete. Not if there's nothing to find, Kakashi pointed out. Without the death notes, there can be no new Kira killings. Eventually, the investigation will go cold. And what then? Naruto challenged. We just move on. Pretend none of this happened. Shikamaru and Kakashi exchanged glances. That was the plan, Shikamaru confirmed. Contain the notebooks, end the killings, let the investigation die naturally. And Misa? What about her? Another uncomfortable exchange of looks. We assumed she would return to her life outside the village, Kakashi said carefully. Once this is resolved. She can't just leave, Naruto protested. She's involved now. If Hyoji connects her to the original Kira case, that's a risk we've considered, Kakashi interrupted. But her continued presence here only increases suspicion. The longer she stays, the more likely Hyoji makes the connection. The logic was sound, but Naruto felt a surge of protectiveness. I won't abandon her. No one's suggesting abandonment, Shikamaru assured him. But strategic distance might be necessary. For her safety as much as yours. Before Naruto could argue further, the door opened and an ANBU agent appeared. Hokage-sama, apologies for the interruption. There's been an incident at the hotel district. What kind of incident? Kakashi asked, instantly alert. The foreign journalist, Amane-san. She's been taken into custody by Detective Hyoji for questioning related to the Kira investigation. Naruto was on his feet instantly. On what grounds? Apparently he received intelligence linking her to the original Kira case in Japan, the ANBU reported. He's holding her at the interrogation facility. He can't do that without my authorization, Kakashi said sharply. He has authorization from the daimyo, sir. Bypassed village protocol entirely. Naruto was already moving toward the door. I'm going to get her. Naruto, wait. Kakashi's voice stopped him. Charging in will only confirm Hyoji's suspicions. We need to handle this carefully. While Misa is being interrogated. Naruto turned back, anger flashing in his eyes. She's alone, afraid, being questioned about things that could send her to prison for life. I promised I'd protect her. And we will, Kakashi assured him. But legally. Through proper channels. The system, Naruto said bitterly. Always the system. Even when it fails the people who need it. Most. The irony wasn't lost on any of them, this was exactly the frustration that had driven Naruto to use the death note in the first place. The slow, cumbersome nature of legal process versus the immediate action sometimes needed to protect people. Give me 1 hour, Kakashi requested. 1 hour to address this through official channels before you do anything, impulsive. Naruto hesitated, torn between trust in his former sensei and fear for Misa. 1 hour, he finally agreed. Not a minute more. As Kakashi left to challenge Hyoji's authority, Shikamaru studied his friend with concern. You really care about her, don't you? Beyond the Kira partnership. I do, Naruto admitted. It started as strategy, but, she understands parts of me no one else does. The burden, the responsibility, the constant pressure to protect everyone. And the death note? If it came down to Misa or destroying the notebooks permanently. Naruto didn't hesitate. Misa. Every time. Shikamaru nodded, having expected that answer. Then we'd better hope Kakashi succeeds. Because Hyoji won't stop until he has Kira in custody, both Kiras. Misa sat in the sterile interrogation room, outwardly composed despite her internal panic. They'd taken her purse, her phone, everything except the clothes she wore. Most worrying, she'd been separated from Rem, the Shinigami could still follow her, but without the death note, Misa couldn't see or communicate with her protector. Across the table, Detective Hyoji calmly arranged a file of documents. Thank you for cooperating, Amane-san. This shouldn't take long if you're forthcoming. I don't understand why I'm here, Misa said, affecting innocent confusion. I'm just a journalist working on a story about war heroes. Are you? Hyoji opened the file. Because according to my research, your journalism career began remarkably recently. Before that, you were a model and occasional actress in Japan. He slid a photo across the table, Misa on a magazine cover from years ago. During a period that coincides exactly with the original Kira killings. Misa maintained her confused expression. What does that have to do with anything? Interestingly, you were detained for questioning during the Kira investigation in Japan. Released due to lack of evidence, but never cleared as a suspect. Hyoji's thin smile never reached his eyes. In fact, the lead detective, the famous L, considered you the most likely candidate for the role of second Kira, until his untimely death. That was years ago, Misa protested. I was a teenager. They questioned lots of people. Indeed. Most of whom didn't suddenly reappear in a village experiencing its own Kira phenomenon. Hyoji leaned forward. Quite the coincidence, wouldn't you say? Misa forced something went wrong with this response, please try again. Proceed to the next chapter of the book. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.